Welcome to Charging the Agency Frontier. I've got Don Donovan, the founder and CEO of Baker Street. Baker Street is a member of the Bull and Beard Agency Collective, and I asked Don to join me for a conversation around their specialty, which is behavioral economics. We don't get a lot of that from a lot of the agencies in our collective. But before we begin, Don, I'd love you if you can introduce yourself and give us a little background on who you are and where you came from.
Hey, thanks a lot, Rob, for having me on.
Yeah, for sure.
So Don Donovan, I was with Procter & Gamble for about 20 years. And in 2002, I started a company called Baker Street, named after Sherlock Holmes' address, 221B Baker Street, London.
Nice.
During my years at Procter & Gamble, I was in brand management the whole time. My final assignment was Vice President of Marketing Innovation. And I transferred to San Francisco and worked on Reflect.com, where we made custom beauty products for women, and we had algorithms that were created when consumers answered questions. We then made a specific product just for them. That's my final assignment at P&G after they'd moved me 4 times. So this has been a very exciting time in my life to be working and founding Baker Street, and now I've been doing that for almost 17 years.
17 years, wow. So talk to me a little bit more about your agency, Baker Street. What is Baker Street? Who is Baker Street?
You know, this is an important question, right? Because we're a very unique agency. And after we talked the first time, Robbie, we're a problem-solving consulting agency. Think of us in the brand of Sherlock Holmes. People come to us when they have real problems. They want to grow top-line revenue, and they're either stuck or they're just growing slowly or flat. And we figured out ways to actually bring mathematics and actual consumer understanding in the form of behavioral economics to the advertising agency business. So when people first meet us, they think of us as a consulting firm because we look at their problem like a consulting firm might, right? We look at the basic problems that are having with consumer understanding. We do consumer understanding research, and hopefully we'll talk a little bit about that. It's called The Right to Succeed. And after we do the consulting project, we then lead to, well, now we'll help you with your marketing and advertising issues, right? And so there we have a full service advertising agency in 2 locations, one in San Francisco and one in Dallas, Texas.
Gotcha.
So in a nutshell, that's really who we are. We're the collective of 3 different pillars of business: a consulting group that was the original company called Baker Street Solutions. And then we are the people that you have met, which is Baker Street Labs, which is the behavioral economics business. And then there's the traditional advertising agency, full service, in downtown San Francisco.
That's a lot there. Awesome. So how and when did you start Baker Street?
So again, we started the business by myself in 2002, an agency of 1 person. So the idea was to bring my expertise from Procter & Gamble to really solving problems. That's why the business has this consulting flavor, right? Is the first piece of business was working for Clorox on their Hidden Valley Ranch business. So we were assigned to help them create a new launch for a new initiative, and we approached it in ways that I had done before at Procter & Gamble. So we did consumer understanding, deep consumer understanding, to find out why people actually buy salad dressing. I mean, this might sound crazy to people that are listening to this podcast later, but really why Baker Street is so different is anybody could tell you what to do. You could hire a consultant and they will tell you what to do. Baker Street comes in and we tell them why they should do that and how it will work. Fundamentally built on actual consumer behavior. And so here's my first anecdote. That first project with Clorox, we did 65 one-on-ones with moms serving salad with salad dressing to their kids in their homes, all across the United States. And the best example that we caught on video was a woman who had 5 children, and she had served them not salad, but raw vegetables and French fries, and she had a bottle of Hidden Valley Ranch dressing and said, and some for you, and some for you, and some for you, and some for you. And she said, Hidden Valley Ranch dressing is the second ketchup.
I love it.
And that idea just went absolutely viral, right? Hidden Valley Ranch salad dressing is in fact the second ketchup. What women were doing was getting their kids to eat vegetables.
Yeah, I love it. I'm a huge fan of Ranch. Hidden Valley Ranch happens to be one of my go-to brands as well. So I can definitely relate as the second ketchup because I use Ranch on just about everything. So I have a question
Right.
related to that. You probably work, mid-sized, larger brands, but what about? I was just on the phone with a startup where, they were sort of unclear around. Okay, well, we have this amount of seed money and we have investment capability. But they didn't seem very clear on exactly what they were going to build and who their audience was and how much they should be charging and a lot of stuff that it seems like research would answer those questions. But for a startup, is that typically too expensive to even jump into? I assume it's going to be pretty costly to do exhaustive studies and that kind of thing.
You would think that what I'm about to tell you is very expensive, but for Fortune 500 companies, it's not, right? It is something in the ballpark of $100,000, right?
Okay.
But we have done this more than 15 times just in the last 2 or 3 years with Silicon Valley startups of all kinds. And not just Silicon Valley, but people in other parts of the country, in Austin, Texas, for example. And one, in fact, in Tahoe, Lake Tahoe, when the startup isn't, in fact, a tech company, it's a vodka company.
Yep.
And so what we do is we do our methodology, which is we only do ethnographic research, one-on-ones with people at the moments of truth, where they buy products and where they use them. And we fundamentally understand the consumer behavior and understand it so well that we then write a quantitative study, measure, and then build what we a behavioral economic model. What is the right message? What is the right person? And when should the message go to them? The model, behavioral economics, predicts how much you might spend and how many people will actually purchase. So startups, I think, are actually our bread and butter. Really, we've been doing this for 17 years, and all the business before was mostly big corporations. I mean, Walmart, Procter & Gamble, Pfizer, Church and Dwight. I mean, big banks. We've done work for retail, automotive, sports companies, but in the last few years, really the bread and butter has been startups, which is really, I appreciate your question. And I think startups would be immensely served by Baker Street because they don't have a long history of what to do. And we, again, solve the 3 key pieces. Who is their prime prospect? What message causes the most purchase? And what is their return on investment? How much will they sell at what cost?
Love it. Love it. Simplifies it. So tell me more about behavioral economics. What is it? How you use it for clients? You talked to a lot of it. I mean, we talked a bit about it, but even for me, I consider myself a seasoned marketer, having done this for 18 years, and I don't know a ton about behavioral economics. So kind of give me your rundown on behavioral economics.
I'll have to do it fairly quickly because I could take up a whole next half hour giving a lecture or a discussion about what it is. But here's what it is in a nutshell. People take actual actions. There are real consumer behaviors that you as a marketing expert know, which is they are first affected by some piece of communication that causes awareness, right? Some people are affected by television advertising or digital advertising or something on social media, and they see it and they're affected. They're affected either by they remember it, which is what's causing awareness, right? Or they're affected by it by a call to action, and they take some action. They click on a banner ad. They go to a website. They want to understand it better, so they do a little bit of research. Behavioral economics is knowing which person, so the prime prospect, so a bunch of individuals across the whole U.S. population, some people are prime prospects for this product. We determine who they are and how much more likely they are to buy than just a normal person. So if a normal person index is 100, their purchase intention is an index of 100. But we find a person whose index is greater, let's call it 120, they are 20% more likely to buy given the exact same message at exactly the same cost. So behavioral economics is a mathematical algorithm that says, in this one instance I am describing, which is how awareness does actually occur and how much it should cost for those people to become aware. And we have hundreds of studies that prove we know how to do this. So you can tell me, I have a budget of $2 million. I would say for $2 million, we will first find out who your prime prospect is. We'll find the message that actually causes them to become interested and aware. And then we will say how much it would cost to get those people not only aware, but so aware that some portion of them will buy it.
Love it.
So it is an algorithm, right? Now, you see, it works at the awareness level. So therefore, it's working on the number of impressions delivered, where the impressions are delivered, how memorable the idea is, how good the target audience is. So if we picked vodka, for example, we must appeal to the 25% of people who purchase vodka every year. But we must not appeal to the 75% of people who don't drink vodka. Yeah, right?
Yeah.
And then you have to say, among that group, what about the people who buy twice a month versus the people who buy once a year? How do you do that? Well, you build a behavioral economic model that says we will find the people who buy twice a month, and we will aim the ads at them, and this message will resonate most strongly, and therefore we know what purchase intention will be. Therefore, we have to make them aware, then we have to get them to the store, and then we have to get them to buy. An algorithm, a behavioral economic algorithm, says what that costs. Now, after we've done it, we do real in-market work, right? We say, how many people actually purchased? We look at IRI, purchase data from stores, right? And we say, you see, we spent this much money and we got this many actual first purchases. We have this kind of repeat product and we have this type of repeat purchase. This modeling is what causes clients of Baker Street to have huge confidence in how much is spent, because we are really doing a cost per acquisition model where we prove that behavioral economics is behind the success.
I was going to say, I mean, this has to, reduce risk, increase ROI. I mean, just manage expectations by approaching it in a much more scientific manner.
It does. And again, I really appreciate what you said earlier, Robbie. Listen, we are perfectly aimed at new products, people who are coming into the market with a new product, people who are coming into the space with a new invention, people who are actually stuck and their top line revenue is not growing and they need to figure out how to do that. Their problems, listen, I'm simplifying, but their problems are down to, is their message resonating strongly enough with the ideal prime prospect? That's what causes internal organic growth of top-line revenue for most companies. You must fix the prime prospect targeting, and you must fix the messaging. And again, that's actually why, in the end of the day, why we're an ad agency, right? Is because we can do all this consulting work, but after we've done it, what we want to do is actually deliver the actual results.
Take it to the marketplace, right? And then you're accountable to those results. Do they align with what the studies showed? So you're kind of a part of the whole scenario.
Exactly. So let me give you one last anecdote on this. We did this for Honda, and we did it as the agency for the Northern California Honda dealers, which is the largest dealer association for Honda in the country. It's 61 dealers. Their media spending is enormous. And we started this many, many years ago, almost 10 years ago with them. But we have grown their business from 50,000 cars to more than 100,000 cars. We have outpaced every other car manufacturer in the zone.
Awesome. So who would be most interested? We talked about startups, but who's kind of your ideal client profile? Who's most interested in what you have to offer? Who's the typical client? Where's the tuning fork going off?
Yeah, again, this is an excellent question. Thanks for asking that. I think if I answer it most candidly, it's actually somebody who has a problem, who recognizes they need marketing and analytics expertise. So if I go into the brand of Baker Street, they're actually looking for Sherlock Holmes.
How often, curious how often they are looking for Sherlock Holmes versus maybe saying that's what they're looking for, but not really, and kind of, I don't know about that level of behavioral economics and that level of insight. Is that needed? Do we need to spend that kind of money? Do you get that kind of pushback sometimes?
We don't, because people who come to us and people through you, people like you who's talked to various individuals, they want to talk to somebody in the current world we live in now that is not just doing traditional advertising. They want to talk to somebody who actually worked on the client side of the business, was in brand, was held accountable for P&Ls, and thinks like they do, we need to build the business, right? So we succeed when people come to us and have that point of view. They say, we may not understand your whole brand, meme here about Sherlock Holmes, but we get it, that we need help with people who understand the actual business experts who are now working on the advertising side, and who they basically say, here's what we would do, you would do the same thing. We're going to find your prime prospect. We're going to find out what message most strongly resonates. We're going to apply real behavioral economic modeling, mathematics, be held accountable for those business results. And that's who says, yes, I'm ready to do this. And I should probably back up and say, when you ask about startups, we actually do some of it cheaper. I mean, sometimes we say, you know what, the real full thing costs $100,000, but what we'll do is we'll delay some of that payment. We will come in to help startups, and because there's cash flow issues at startups, I've been in startups myself. I own 3 companies. So I understand that at first you don't have as much cash. So we just say, listen, you just pay us over time, right? We become your agency of record, and those dollars are spread over time. That now works for almost everyone, right? $100,000 spread over a year, $10,000 a month.
So we've talked a little bit about your model. You talked about being a consulting firm. Are you an ad agency, a blend of both, a hybrid? Talk a little bit more about your model. And then there's been a lot of movement, agent or advertising industry wide, as far as consulting companies, adopting, getting creative teams and getting into the agency space, agencies getting into the consulting space. A lot of crisscross is definitely happening in the marketplace. But tell me specifically about your model.
It is started by former CPG Procter & Gamble executives, right? So rather than a big consulting company like any of the ones in the East, Bain or Boston or any or even Pricewaterhouse, Deloitte, we're not coming from that consulting world. We're coming from the client side world of having actually done the work, right? And having been brand managers. And again, even vice presidents of major corporations. So what we do is we brought that to the agency business, right? So we became consultants, but from CPG. And that is really a very big difference, right? Because we have done the jobs the people at our clients do now. We have done those jobs.
When you say we, just to interject, because obviously you've got that pedigree background on that side, but so you've recruited a team that has shared experiences that are similar?
Yeah, so again, I'll just name a few of them. So Matt Doyle is the chief operating officer of the company. He was with Procter & Gamble 10 years. And before that, he was a U.S. Navy pilot. So he was actually a Top Gun pilot and landed jets on aircraft carriers.
Nice.
Then we have a woman named Vanessa Jenkins, who's our president of the solutions business. And she was a few years at P&G, but then she was at many other companies. She was at Dial, she was at Beam Suntory, she was at Constellation Brands. So she had 20-year pedigree in CPG. So we have a whole bunch of people like this, right? And we have some people who had great agency experience. We have some people with more than 30 years agency experience. So we're a blend of that. We're a blend of these people who started the business, who are at our senior levels, who have more than 30 years, either on the client side or the agency side, to run the business.
Gotcha.
Was that a full enough explanation of why we're so different? We're really CPG, or what you might call client-side executives, who are running an advertising agency.
Yeah, that definitely helps. And walk me through kind of core capabilities on the agency side, really, of kind of what you're doing, creative production, media. I mean, what all do you cover in those areas?
Yeah, so once we leave what we would call the early fundamental work called the right to succeed, that research I described to you that has the phases, the ethno, the quant, the behavioral economic modeling, when that's all complete, it goes to, creative production. So yes, we have complete in-house creative teams, right? And no external people, no consultants, no third party. We also have full in-house media, both normal broadcast and traditional and digital. We have both, right? We have one office in San Francisco and one office in Dallas. And then beyond that, we actually have production. We have our own directors, right? So we have production capability and editing capability. So we do that in San Francisco. So if you thought about us, you'd say, well, okay, well, these guys obviously have account management, right? So we start with consulting and research. That involves strategic planning. And then, of course, we have media buying and planning. We have full creative capability and production, and, of course, account management. I really don't know what we would be missing. We're really small, you know, we're only 40 people. You know, we're not OMG, you know, we're not 100,000 people, but we're a very capable organization with all the things that someone would need to take a product to market.
Love it. Love it. Talk to me quickly. I've got a final question, but before that, what categories do you specialize in, or do you have a strong footprint within?
So we have a very strong footprint in 3 areas, really. So we have a strong footprint in CPG, right? Hundreds of projects, lots of clients in CPG. We also have very strong experience in automotive, right? So with Honda and with Acura and with Aston Martin. The people who work for us have even more deeper bench experience than that. We have the president of the ANSI who has experience at Mercedes-Benz and Mazda. We have other people who had experience with other car manufacturers. So a very deep bench in automotive. The other thing I would have to point out is we have deep experience in retail, because some of the automotive people we deal with are in fact car dealers, right? So that's another thing that we have fairly deep experience in. But we also have it at the level of stores, you know, work with people like La-Z-Boy, people with experience with Boudin SF, which is the bakery in San Francisco who opened a bunch of bistros. So we have experience with retail like that. We have experience with retail with people like Walmart, right? So there you go. Our top 3 are probably CPG across all kinds, probably everybody you could name, automotive, deep bench, and additional retail. The fourth area that we have a lot of experience in is in sports. So we've been the agency for the San Francisco Giants, and we've been approached by many of the other people in the Bay Area to do work for them. So we just finished doing the college playoffs. So the college playoff, as you probably know, was here in the Bay Area, and we were the agency to do the media for that. So again, those are quite a few of the ones where our deepest experience is.
Yeah, love it. That's helpful. So, Don, I appreciate your time today. We like to keep these to kind of 15, 20 minutes, make sure people have time to digest. But I want to let you finish by kind of summing up Baker Street and giving our audience a way to get in touch with you, learn more about Baker Street's offering, if that's your website, if there's a special secret phone number that you give out, or what's the best way to move forward if somebody says, you know what, this is somebody that I need to speak with. And the other question I had before you kind of close it out is, do you work with other agencies at all, given that you have the agency side of the business? I know that there'd be a fair amount of agencies that don't have the behavioral economics piece to their business and aren't interested in adding it because it's a ginormous undertaking. Do you ever work with agencies by helping them with the behavioral economics piece of the business and then letting them take the account and some of the other creative production pieces to it?
Yes, to be absolutely candid, that is what we have done for most of the time that we have been in existence. For most of the 17 to 18 years, we have mostly done the front end of all this work, including the behavioral economics, and worked in partnership with big global agencies. So that they actually did the rest, right? But to be fair to us, in the last few years, we have taken on more and more of that. And clients have been willing to say, wow, let's just do this with Baker Street.
Right.
Yep. So that's what's happened. So again, I would say, let me sum up by saying a little bit about why I did this. I did this because we literally we ask this question: what will it take to cause the change in consumer behavior for you to build your business? That's what we ask. We say there is something that would cause the behavior to change and you would sell more. And we say, 1, we're going to find out what that is. 2, we're going to prove it. 3, we're going to show you how to spend money to actually deliver those business results. That's who Baker Street actually is.
Love it.
And we over and over and over again. We've done it in automotive. We can predict how many cars are sold by every dealer in every city in America. Every day. Every day. We know how many cars are sold every day. We built a demand curve that is within 1.2% for every dealer in America. We did the exact same thing for television shows. We can predict how many people will watch a show. We've done it with something called media architecture, which is how much money do you have to spend to create this kind of awareness, and how does awareness build? So these kinds of mathematical behavioral economics things is what Baker Street is. But we are still about what will cause the consumer behavior change. And we find out what it is, and then we do it. Now, I'm happy to have people contact you, Robbie, and learn more about me, but they can reach me directly if they would like, and they can go to, and if you just type in Baker Street Advertising, you'll see one of our websites. If you type in Baker Street Labs, you'll see a different website. You can look at any piece of our business by doing that. You can reach me directly by sending an email to me at Don, D-O-N, at BakerStreetSolutions.com. Street is not spelled out. It's just the abbreviation ST. So Baker, ST, Solutions with an S.com. And if you really want to, you can call me on my office phone at 707-823-1592.
Gave away the office phone. Better be going to a high-end audience. It will. We've got a lot of agency owners and marketers that I think will be really interested in what you've had to say today. And again, I think this is an area where there's some education needed and some insight needed from somebody like yourself to really help people understand the value of behavioral economics and how that influences really advertising and everything else that you do. Because I think it's easy to think about surface level advertising and not so easy to think about some of the foundational research and components that really lead up to being more positive about what you're doing and getting validation before you enter the marketplace, instead of entering the marketplace and then getting validation and then starting to figure out trial by error what's working, what isn't working. It seems like a pretty stark difference in approach. So I really appreciate you taking the time and being a part of our collective. We're obviously looking for relevant opportunities to send your way, and I'd recommend anybody to feel free to reach out to Don directly. And hopefully this video has been helpful for everybody. If you have any questions or comments, please leave a comment here. I'll make sure Don sees it, and we'll get back with you with an answer. And appreciate everybody's time for tuning in. Thanks, Don.
Thank you, Rob. Really appreciate meeting you and this opportunity.